Hello everyone, it's Douglas E. Welch with another episode of In the Garden for A Gardener's Notebook. For more information on A Gardener's Notebook as well as everything else that we do, you can find us on the website douglasewelch.com. And as you can hear, we're out in the front garden today with the traffic going by. And just a few cleanup items to do today, including these guys right here. We're basically time to do a little bit of deadheading on the roses here. You can see the one here in the foreground and three in the background. Now, normally, if you're coming to the end of your season, and wherever you are, you might want to leave the blooms on because it will form rose hips. It kind of helps the rose go to sleep for the season. Here in Southern California, our roses really don't go dormant. If they go dormant at all, it tends to be in the heat of the summer. But as you can see here, we have a few blooms on here. Rose hips can make nice tea. It is very sour. It is related to the apple family. When you're deadheading, basically you take the, you want to come back to the first set of 5 at least. I tend to go a little bit further back, especially this late in the season. And these roses could all use a little bit of pruning anyway. So I tend to take them back perhaps a little further than you might normally. This is a great job for the kids in your family once they get to be a certain age. It's very easy to identify. You can give them the nice rules about, go back to the first set of 5 leaves and snip off right above that, and pretty much very easy to do. Now you might be able to see here too, this is a sucker coming up from the middle of the plant up there, and what we want to do with the sucker is we're going to reach all the way down to the soil level, take him off down there to kill him off completely. Now what I typically do is I give these roses a hard prune late December, early January every year, where we take it back. They look like little shorn sheep, and there's actually some pictures on the website where you can see after I've done them. But that helps rejuvenate them for the coming year. It's during our rainy season, so they're getting plenty of moisture to recover from the pruning, and it just helps to neaten things up. These roses are underneath a tree, and so you may notice they tend to lean out towards the camera here. They're reaching out for the sunlight, and this tree was especially overgrown until we had it pruned back a few months ago, so it was even worse. Now that we're getting enough water into these beds, the roses seem to be recovering nicely. They were looking pretty sad there for a while, but now it looks like we're actually getting back on top of things. We saw a nice bloom that just came through, and hopefully that means we're back on the right track. And here you can see some of the blooms that are currently on right now. These are smaller than we've seen in the past. I think that is again because they have been struggling so badly, but the water is certainly helping quite a bit. Over the year, the first bloom tends to be the biggest too, and we tend to get fairly large flowers, almost, I would say sometimes twice the size of the ones you're seeing here. The sweet potatoes continue growing. You see they're almost taking over this entire bed now here. They're looking a little bug-eaten, but otherwise really, really healthy, I should say. They are in need of being buried again, and I have to check the date on these to see when we're starting to get closer to our 150-day cycle to see when it might be possible to dig up some of the vines and see what we have underneath. This is a much larger growth than we originally had on these. This shows us right off the bat that we're getting more water and we have a better level of soil in this bed now that we filled it up. Now in the background there, unfortunately, you can see I talked about the raccoons and other animals digging in this bed earlier on where we had planted the seeds. They have basically decimated it. It seems obvious that when I'm starting a bed like this, I'm going to have to go out and get some chicken wire or something just to keep them off it for a short period of time. Not sure why they decided they wanted this bed to be dug in quite so well, except for the fact that it was the new soil. Maybe there were grubs, maybe there were mushrooms, I don't know, but boy, they've just totally decimated it. They turned it over nicely, so I'm basically ready to rake it over and replant, but I much rather would have had new seedlings and things growing in that area instead of leaving it for the animals. And now, just a little word of warning, a little word of advisement. Here at the back of our property, we have a right-of-way for this power and telephone line system. And unfortunately, we didn't get to decide where our trees were planted. The previous owners planted the trees along this right-of-way, and as you can see there, they're very close to the phone lines, which are the lower ones. That's also the cable line, and the power lines, which are at the very top. Now, thankfully, we don't have a lot of trouble with this. Although what brings it to mind is the local Department of Water and Power, LADWP, came in, they sent their tree crew around through the neighborhood, as they usually do every couple months, and they did do a bit of pruning. Luckily for us, they only pruned back to the tops of the electric line, and that means that most of our trees have a nice lower growth on them. They don't suffer too much from any topping that gets done, but it is always better to make sure you know what's going to be, where your trees are going to grow, how big they're going to grow, what shape they're going to grow, so that hopefully you can avoid this if you are planting new trees, so that you don't have to worry about avoiding utility right-of-ways and wires and everything else, because frankly, you can end up with something like this tree. Now, honestly, this one looks a lot better than it did. This is a beautiful Norfolk pine. It actually had a perfectly nice leader on top. It was perfectly conical, and unfortunately at one time someone came in and took the top right off it. It has recovered rather nicely, better than I ever hoped it would, but it's always better for your trees if you never have to go through that in the first place. Now, another thing you don't always have control over is the fences along the property lines you share with other people. Now, I'm the first to say we have been very lucky in having some of the better neighbors that we know amongst all of our friends. But as you can see, this fence is rapidly falling apart. The previous owners were elderly. They really didn't want to do anything with the fence. The fence had been there since they moved in, probably around 1975. We've kind of been patching it back together over the years, but never really coming to an agreement to replace it. The house was recently sold. Unfortunately, both the owners have passed away, and we've been waiting for the new owners to arrive. It's actually been empty for 2 months now, and we're hoping that in some way we'll be able to split the cost of repairing this fence. I'd like to get away from using the wooden fence here and put in some sort of vinyl and or perhaps concrete or stone wall here, just so it lasts longer than this fence. Wooden fences out here, yes, it is drier, but they can get termites. They, in this case, the vines that grow along here, these Tacoma vines, can actually push apart the fence as they reach through it to get to the light on the other side. We're actually looking nearly due south at this point, and so they try to reach up and over the fence. I've been keeping those trimmed back and actually pulling them out over time because I really don't enjoy them because of that behavior. But in this case, it'd be really nice to be able to have a nice new fence here, repair some of the damage, the movement that's been caused by various tree roots along it as well. So we're hoping when the new owners get in here, we'll be able to have a nice discussion with them and figure out an equitable way to kind of split the cost on this and have a nice new fence along our southern property line. I got another reminder why it's always so important to kind of keep an eye on things in your garden, especially those things you've got automated. Here at this timer, it's been a couple months since we've had it installed. I'm assuming things are settling in a little bit, and if you watch very carefully below that little black coupling there, you'll notice every so often there is a drip. Looking under it, there's actually a little bit of a puddle there. So I hadn't noticed that in the past, but since I came out today, I was just kind of taking some time to check on the things, especially the automated things, and sure enough found this leak. So it's very important to notice those things when they occur, as soon as they occur, and then go ahead and fix them. In this case, it looks like I might have to replace a washer or something here. I'm still kind of sussing out where it's leaking. It was leaking a little bit worse earlier on, but we'll give it a check. We'll tighten everything up, and then we'll make sure that it's not wasting any water. So that's it for this episode of In the Garden. Thanks for joining us. You know, one of the reasons I do these videos is to hear from you as well. I want to see what's going on in your garden. Teach me something. Help me learn a little bit more about how I can go out there and garden. I do struggle a little bit with our climate and our weather and our lack of moisture here in Southern California, but I'm sure some of you out there have some great ideas of something I might do to my garden. If you've seen a part of my garden you think could be improved, send along an idea. I'd love to hear it. You must believe me on that, because I'm always looking for great advice in everything I do. Until next time, please visit the website douglasewelch.com. There you'll find links to a gardener's notebook as well as everything else that I do, including career opportunities, technology IQ, careers in new media, and more. Again, love to hear from you. Until next time, keep digging.